Okay, and we are live. Welcome everyone. If you are already here, please comment, say something in the chat so that we know we are talking to someone. We are here with new events of Power BI User Group Italy. I haven't done this in a while. I think it's been at least a month, so I forgot what is my usual things that I say before starting the event, but it's pretty much just a way to take some time before the people start arriving, so it's not a problem. I see that we already have a comment from Marco. Marco is always present. All our streaming events, live events in Turin, live events in Milan, Ticino Conference is one of the most active members of our community. So hello, Marco. Let's see if somebody else joins and wants to say hi in either YouTube or LinkedIn, although we have a little bit of a delay with LinkedIn comments. So if I don't show them, it's because of that. So since Marco is already here, we can start. So, as I said, our most active users, I don't want to make him wait. And let me start slowly by introducing the speaker, the session, everything we are doing, and then David will start when a little bit more people have joined already. So today we are here. You probably already know what the event is about. If you've read all the graphics that we've done, if you've read the abstract of the session, we are here to talk about PBIP with David Kofod. David is an MVP, speaker, MCT, consultant, and most of all, a very passionate person about Power BI, I guess, because you do a lot of work in this field. We've met at a few conferences now. I've seen his conferences live. I know he's a great speaker, so this is gonna be interesting for sure. Not just because of the speaker, but also because of the topic. The topic is, you already know, probably PBIP, one of the most interesting and changing features of the last years of the Power BI world. So yeah, David, if you want to say something before I go on with the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Alessandro, for inviting me to join this live stream. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, it's extremely exciting topic on this PBIP. And there's a lot going on also with agentic development and so forth. But what this talk is really about is really trying to focus on how would a single Power BI developer begin the fundamentals with Visual Studio Code, with Git source control, and then the PBIP. And getting the fundamentals right will then open up for much more control when going deep dive into the agentic developments. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Nice. Nice. I guess all the people that are following and that will see this session later also on YouTube and LinkedIn, I guess everyone is a little bit partly hyped and partly scared by all these things about agents. On the one hand, they seem really good to automate and to speed up work. On the other hand, you are scared that you're going to lose your job because of agents, or that you're not doing enough. Like sometimes it feels like we have so many possibilities now, and I'm not doing something with agents. Sometimes myself, I just go and use AI just for the sake of it. So yeah, let's learn today how to set up everything correctly in Power BI with Power BI models and reports to leverage these agents the best way that we can. So let me do the usual introduction to our user group. If this is the first time that you are following a session from Power BI User Group Italy, we are the, I would say, biggest Italian community dedicated to, well, Power BI for sure, Fabric and SQL for sure, business intelligence in general. We do live events, we do streaming events 2 per month, we do conferences. So yeah, if you want to join the community and participate in the activities, there are the social channels. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, on Meetup for in order to subscribe to the events, or you can join the messaging platforms like Telegram and WhatsApp, where you can receive notifications about the events that we do. And also there is a group chat on Telegram, of course, which is mostly for Italian speakers. But yeah, if you come in the chat and you want to ask something in English, for sure somebody's going to answer. And on YouTube, you will find the events. This event as well will stay on our YouTube channel. You can rewatch it if you want in the future. And you find everything at our link tree that I will share in the chat, both on LinkedIn and on YouTube, once David starts his session. So I have some time to type the link tree in the chat, or you can search for it. The URL is very simple. We have a GoFundMe, so if you like our events, you know that everything that we do is free. It will always stay free. The Ticino Conference is free. The Torino meetups are free. The streaming events are free. If you want to support us for the expenses that we sometimes have, so I don't know, StreamYard or I don't know, gifting something to the community, you know, it's just going to be spent on the events anyway. So if you want, we have a GoFundMe. It's in the link tree as well. Call for speakers. We have a always open call for speakers for the online events on Sessionize. So if you are a speaker or if you are someone from the community and you want to present something also for the first time, you can apply there and we will get back to you. We have a lot of submissions. This is the number of sessions delivered, which is 27 coming from Sessionize, but we have much more in pipeline, so probably you're gonna wait a little bit, but it's gonna happen for sure if you apply with us. Community is open to everyone. Everyone who wants to join and help with our work is welcome. We are not like closed in a little closed group of admins doing keeping it to ourselves. If you want to do events in your city, like if you are not from Turin or from Milan or from Bologna like myself, maybe you want to do an event in Rome or in Naples or in Bari or wherever, you can just write to us and we will use the channels of the user group to advertise the event. We will help you organize the graphics and everything, and you do the event in your own city. Of course, we cannot be everywhere all over Italy. It's a little bit difficult for us. If you want to maybe help with that, that would be great. If you are in the Italian community, of course. But also, if you want to assist in these live events, everything else, you can just contact us. It's going to be a nice experience for sure. Next events that we have in July, we're going to have 2 events with 2 Italian speakers. Andrea De Togni, who is also a member of our community, he speaks a lot and writes a lot on our Telegram channel. He's a data manager, let's say. The word doesn't come to me, but CDO maybe it's the best word. He's going to explain to us. Well, both of them are not really deep technical sessions, so they are good for July since we have like 60 degrees in Italy, and really we will not be able to do anything technical. The first one is about how to sell your idea to the CEO. So it's a session about how to better sell yourself and your ideas if you are a technician, let's say, if you are a nerd, if you want to use a bit of an old style term, and you want to become better selling your proposals inside the company and explaining the value out of your products. That is going to be a good session for you. And then Francesco Marino on the 29th of July is Italian but lives in Switzerland, if I understand correctly. Is going to be about improving BI user experience in corporate environments. He works, if I remember again correctly, for a big bank, big Swiss bank. So that doesn't get more corporate than Swiss banks, I guess. And for sure, he's going to have some really useful hints for us. Ticino Data Conference, 30th of October. The subscriptions are open on Luma. I'm not going to deep dive now. There is already a lot of information on our socials. One full day of conference, completely free. Lunch is on us, on the sponsors actually, coffee as well. And yeah, there's both a call for speakers, call for sponsors, subscriptions on Luma, as I said. And tomorrow we're gonna announce the pre-con, which is gonna be really interesting. So follow our socials for that. That's it from me. I've already taken up enough time. I think we can really start with the session. So I leave the floor to David and I will share his slides and I leave it to him. Ciao, Andrea as well. He said hi in the chat. And David, you can go.
Perfect. Thank you. So excited to be here and for this topic. Let's get started. So what we're going to have here is a practical session on a guide I wish I had 1 year ago when I really started out on this more technical path for source control, Git, Visual Studio Code, and understanding the PBIP. So anything I'm going to show, you can actually follow along, most likely not live, but you can watch this session. And everything I have is on my GitHub, the slides, the code I'm going to use, and the examples. So a good case for some study there. But we're going to look into basic fundamentals of the PBIP, the PBIR, and CMDL. Already there are a lot of abbreviations there. And what is in preview, what is in GA, and so forth. And then what do you need to set up and install as extensions working with Visual Studio Code? I have watched several people, very technical, high-skilled people, and I'm not a pro developer, and they just assumed that I had everything installed. And then they just right-click, and then I know that that's actually an extension. Couldn't you just tell me what kind of extension I need before you show it? Because I'm already behind. So I have some slides on what you need to install so you can follow along as well. And then we're going to look on working with the JSON report theme in Visual Studio Code. And that's very on data storytelling and consistency in the colors, but also trying to remove that ugly default from Microsoft. They are trying to do that also with the new Power BI Core Visuals team there with the style presets and so forth. So thanks for that. But I'm going to show you also how we can add our own style presets, but how that is much easier in Visual Studio Code and with some schema. And also then working with Git and Visual Studio Code, whenever change we do make in the semantic model on the report, we'll then be able to see what is actually being changed, modified, deleted, or added. And we can very consciously say, what did we save and which files did we include in that save? And if you follow me on LinkedIn, most likely you already have seen a hashtag that is a bit of a stretch, that documentation can be fun. So I have a copy-paste template of a model documentation DAX table, but also a Power BI report page that we can just copy-paste into this PBIP, and then we have it. So like a good component. And then when we have the fundamentals there, we can then begin to have a small exploration on how to get started with agentic Power BI development with GitHub Copilot and the Power BI modeling MCP server. And I feel every time I have this talk, there's always new things to catch up on, new skills, new concepts, and so forth. But yeah, this is about the fundamentals. And I have loads of links on who to follow if you would like to be a first mover. All right, so yeah, a few words about me. I'm David Hanna. I'm based in Denmark, been a consultant for the past 10 years, Microsoft MVP, certified trainer in Microsoft and Tableau Editor, certified in Databricks, love teaching, love getting knowledge, and teaching that for others as well. And I do love football, and I'm so sad to not see Italy and Denmark be part of the World Cup. It really is sad, but still, I do love FC Barcelona, so I follow Lionel Messi, and what a week that has been.
Same.
All right, so assumptions here. This is going to be still, it depends on who you talk to, but I have pro developers, friends, colleagues who would say, okay, this is too easy, but this would be too difficult for just a normal Power BI developer. So normally in between, but it is a lightweight Git introduction for a single Power BI developer. I will not use any time on strategy for branching or pushing to GitHub or Azure DevOps. All Git will just be running locally and not be using any command line interface. So we have 1 hour. So let's be realistic, but also let's get it right with ourselves before we try to collaborate and automate stuff. So before PBIR, which is the Power BI enhanced report format, we just had one big report JSON. That is actually not a file you saw unless you were very curious and unzipped the PBIX. So if you unzip the PBIX, there are several files in that. The diagram layout view, data model connections, and then the report.json. A huge file with kilometer-long lines of code, which was a nightmare trying to look on what was happening there. Then in 2024, June, oh my dear, 2 years ago, and still preview. Yeah, it's also a big enhancement there. Instead of one big file, we got folders and multiple individual files. And I'm going to also show you that, but one visual is going to be one file. And then we're going to have one folder for all the pages. We're going to have a file for all the pages. Also, what is the active page, also with the new landing page, which is really cool to see. And also a folder for our report themes and so forth. So we're having multiple files. Well, what is the advantage? Well, we're going to see later on when opening up in Visual Studio Code. So that is the report layer. For the semantic model, and I know I'm a bit biased, I'm also certified trainer in Table Editor, but for years, instead of working with the BIM file or the TMSL, well, Table Editor could actually use this save to folder to splitting one big file into loads of files, one file per measure, per column, per partition, per table, and so forth, which was really nice for source control. But this is unique to Table Editor. Of course, you can convert back and forth, but you have been able to do that for a long time. But then TMDL or TMDL came, Tabular Model Definition Language, preview April 2023, general available in August 2024, which was an upgrade of this model.bim. So instead of one big file, we then had folders and files. Not as detailed as the database.json with Table Editor, but we have one TMDL file per table. And in that file of the table, we have columns, partitions, relationships, measures, expressions, and so forth. And then we also have folders for DAX queries and scripts and cultures and so forth. And then we also have the PBRR, which is the report layer. So the TMDL, the semantic model, and the PBRR, the report layer, that combined is then the PBIP, Power BI projects folder formats. That has been previewed since 2023, and fingers crossed, expected to go GA later this year. So yeah, there are some preview features we need to have set up in Power BI Desktop to utilize these. All right, before we move on, there are some few things we also need to have when working with Visual Studio Code. It is free to install, but we also need to install Git. And one of the most difficult things to then just not install Git is to configure the user and email. I have found some first-time setup links. You need to validate with the email and the user, all that. And then there are in Power BI Desktop some settings you need to enable in order to use this PBIP, the template, and PBRR. And then you most likely have an existing PBIX, and then you can take a copy or save as into the PBIP folder format. And I'll see later on how to do that and what it will then do, but it will explode then in the number of folders and files. Then there's also some extensions for Visual Studio Code that is really helpful, the color highlights. So when looking on the report theme, we can actually see the hex colors, not just as the code, but the actual color, which is much more easier when looking on that. There's also Get Graph that we can see the different commits that we're doing. Open in application is also nice that we can right click to then open up that specific file that we're looking on, for example, opening up in Power BI Desktop. So all these small tips and tricks and extensions that are nice to have, these are here that you can install. Also, when then going into the LLMs and using GitHub Copilot, there is the chat you need to install. You need to have a GitHub Copilot license. There's a free version, but I know there has been some noise about that for new signups, and there have been changing the licensing here of 1st of June, making it more expensive for running all these things. But there should still be an option of starting with free. And if you get hooked, you definitely need to have a subscription in some way or another. And then you definitely also need the Power BI Modeling MCP server, which is a way to connect your Power BI desktop or the PBIP to the LLM. So it understands how it is connected in a way, but also just getting access to the data, the metadata, the tables, the columns, measures, So the Power BI modeling MCP server, mostly focused on the semantic model, but there will be something on the report layer as well. So quite a few things you need to install just before we even get started. But again, I think this is for a practical guide, and if you would like to follow along after this session as well. And then the terminology of Git. I think that frightens a lot of Power BI developers. Also, maybe you're not a pro developer. Often Power BI developers and Git is not something that just rhymes. But relax, you already work with version history just in OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox. You can see the version history, but you just have no clue, or you're not deliberately saying, I want to save now. And then suddenly you then have 40 versions when you go into version history, and you have no clue on what was actually the change here. So this is really difficult to see, but you always have the option on restoring a previous file. So you have that sort of version history. But with Git, we can have much more flexibility in when we would like to save, what should be included in the save, and also what was actually the change in that particular save, comparing that with the previous change. So it's going to open that box up, and that is going to be the game changer. And yeah, so already a bit frightened with all this Git and code and something like that. That is not user-friendly at all to Power BI developers. Give me a button to click or something like that. So let's get started here. So the first thing in order to get started is we need some data. And why not then clone my own repo? And let me head over there. So I've already done this before. But going into my GitHub or any GitHub, well, it is a way to easily share code if that GitHub is, the repo is public. By clicking here on the code, you could say download zip, and then you just have all my sessions, all my scripts, all the things I have in one single zip file, and you can extract, and then you could just play along. But you can also clone it using this web URL. So you can actually say, well, in Visual Studio Code that we're going to open up, connect to this one, and I would like to access these files. And also if changes come up, then give me and synchronize there. So I'll copy this URL, and then I will open up Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is something you should install. It's free. Yes, you can have dark theme, but I'll use light theme here. I think it's easier to show on a presentation. So if I go over here in the Explorer, we can then say clone a repository. So this is where I can provide the URL and click enter. And I already did this before, so I can just say, well, let me just open this in a new window. So I can then see all that in my GitHub repo that is now available here. I can see I have this get started series PBIP VS Code. That is the folder I am mostly interested in for today. And I can even see the PDFs. I made a 71-page PDF start with this, getting started, where there is all of these slides and many more examples and so forth. And this is where I have the PBIX, and I also have some other codes here we would like to utilize. This is then actually also saved locally. And it is a good tip to have like a local folder, not on OneDrive, not on Dropbox, because that can interfere with the Git when you save. So Windows, the users, my name, and then a Git folder, and then I have all my Git projects there. And this is where I can also see my self-service Power BI Fabric, and this is just folders and files. So this is what I was showing just before in Visual Studio Code. So this is actually the PBIX I would like to open. And it's going to be a terrible report. And I had some visuals that I can't help to quickly get rid of or change. But first, we would need to make a folder and prepare to initialize a new project to begin to see these changes. And we're going to wait for Power BI Desktop to open. Wonderful, wonderful report. It's going to be the most beautiful report that you're going to see today. We have 2 pages, and I have the analysis, and this one, the tree map. I can't wait to change that. But let's first create a Git folder. So inside this Git, I will just create a new folder. Let's name it Italy user group. So here I would like to save this PBIX into a PBIP into this folder. So clicking File, clicking Save As, browse this device. I will then go in and find that new folder I just created. And then I will switch from PBIX into PBIP and save. And we will then see it will take that one big file into a couple of folders. As we can see here, the name of the Power BI file, .report and .semantic model, and then a path to everything located in these. So double clicking here would then open up the Power BI as well. So .report, we'll be able to see, well, in static resources, we have the report theme, my own, and also then the base theme that is coming from Microsoft. And we can have multiple themes there, but mainly it's in the definition. So in the definition, I have a pages folder. I have 2 very logical names of my report pages, overview and analysis. Well, not that intuitive, but hopefully they're gonna change that in some way so we can actually see the name, the display name, and not the GUID. But this is most likely the overview page, and on that overview page we have some visuals. Yes. Then we also have some 20 random character that is unique for that visual. But then we have a visual.json, and if I open that up, I will then be able to see JSON for that visual with the coordinates of the position. I can see this is actually a slicer on my dim date and date, and it is sorted by something, ascending, and yeah. I'm not going to deep dive into this or write this code myself, but we can look at it. And later on, we'll soon see that whatever we do can see the modifications on these files. Going back, yeah, so if you had bookmarks, for example, you would actually also have a folder for bookmarks. And if you think bookmarks are quite complicated and difficult to document, you should see the long JSON code there as well. You can easily get thousands of lines of JSON. But yeah, let's go into the .semantic model. And in the semantic model, you can have some DAX queries. So if you have DAX query views over here, it will be saved here as well. But again, mostly it's in the definition. So in the definition, we have tables. And we have then one template file per table. So opening up this fact view orders, I will then be able to see in template, tabular model definition language, the table, the column, the description or annotations I have, and column, and just at the very bottom. Well, there's no measures currently on this table, but then you can see the partition, which is then also the M code in order to connect to this table. All right, so why is this fancy? Why is this good? Well, let's create a new Visual Studio and connect to this folder. I have it here. So in Visual Studio Code, instead of using the File Explorer, I will open this folder and the PBIP via Visual Studio Code. So clicking Open Folder, I will open the folder I just created and save that file or the folder. Italy user group. And now I am connected to this folder and I can see this project and I can see all the same files I just showed you before. All right, so what is the main difference here? Well, it is actually going into source control. Source control, it is not just given as default. We need to initialize a repository so Git can begin to track the changes of these files of this folder. So initialize repository. Then we can see I have 45 files in this folder. 45 files instead of one big PBIX. And then there are some different letters. This U is untracked. This means it's a new file that Git has not been told how to track this. Is it a new? Is it removed? Is it something? It is untracked. We have not taken a decision on this before. Normally, well, you should be, well, this is the first commit. So normally you could say, okay, is there something we should exclude or ignore or all that? But we'll just take all the changes and click the plus to stage all changes. That is meaning we are preparing to include all these 44 files in our next commit or in our next save. So now you can also see that U is now A, which is added. So these 45 files will be added to our save. So I'll just have first commit. And don't you dare not have any text here. And you don't have any excuse. You can also even have AI generate some commit message. So no excuse there. Clicking commit here, it will then say, well, now these are gone. Well, what's happening? It is due to Git is now constantly tracking this folder and only showing you if there is a difference between what you have saved lately and what is in the folder. Here we can also see in the first commits and open that up that all these 45 files was part of that commit. All right, let's go back and delete or change that tree map. That is just terrible. I don't know who would use that. So let's change that into a clustered bar chart. And yeah, we could do more things, but let's just say it's like that. And then I will click save. And as I click save, that PBIP will then be saved back to the Italy folder, and my Visual Studio will have tracked the change on one file, visual.json. If I click here, I will then be able to see a very nice comparative. With the red is what was there before, but now is deleted. And the green is what did we add. So I can see previously I had the tree map, but now I have clustered bar chart. And there are, of course, some properties that is not identical between these two visuals. I can see over to the here in the scroll that I have mostly red and some spots of green. And I can scroll down and see, yes, I did not have any there. Okay, cool. So if I'm happy about this change, well, I can say I would like to state this change and say change from tree map to clustered bar chart. And normally maybe you would like to have including a bit more things here, but just to say, now we have control of the individual files on the individual visuals there. And now you can see I can control the saves. Now I have another commit or another save here on my Git graph. And if I click here, it is not the 45 files. It is just a single file that I did a modification. M is an existing file I did a modification. And I can easily see what was part of that save. So I can begin to have that version history and not just restore. I can also easily see in the code what was actually changed. Did I add a new visual? Did I delete one? Did I add a new page? And so forth. And I think that is just super cool. One of the things, well, it is normally, I have seen this plenty of times and myself as well, accidentally publishing a report standing on the wrong page, because the page you are on will be the first page the end user will look on. And the analysis is not the first page. So there's going to be a problem here. So if I click save here on the overview, I will actually see a change now in the pages.json. So before the active page name, this one, very logical name for the analysis, what's the active page name, but now I saved so it's the overview page. So this is a way, the pages.json is a way you could actually see what was the active page name. But now in the new release, you can actually right click and set as landing page, and you get that small house. And if I click save here, you'll actually see in the code how it is handling this. And it's super easy. We just have one other property named landing page name, and that is there. So even though you could have an active page name that will then be the analysis, that landing page will be the main thing on what should be the first page for the end user. Yeah. And that really opens up for all these small tips and tricks that Microsoft also can add and enrich, because we have such level of detail we can go in and modify this. Let me also then edit landing page. So I can state that and commit. Cool. All right. So let's get moving on as well. Let me head over to the slides. I have a few things there. So what we just did is we cloned the repo. We opened up the PBIX, converted into PBIP, initialized the repo with Visual Studio Code, and I made some changes, and we can begin to track the changes, and I can control when I would like to save and commit. And I also can easily see the difference between what is available in the repo and what I'm developing right now, and can only then include what I'm actually also interested in. All right, so this 20 character, yeah, what? How can I see that? Well, I do really hope that they are gonna change this once it goes GA. I really hope. But until then, there is a trick that you can right click, for example, a page, then you can say copy object name. That will then give you that GUID of that page or that visual or that bookmark or what it might be. And then we can go into the Visual Studio Code, and I can go into the search for this, and then I can see all the files where this GUID is active. So 4 results in 2 files. So now you can see that, okay, this overview page is that. You can also rename some of these files, but I have tried that before, and then it will convert it back to the original ID. So maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it is allowed to change the page name, the bookmark name, and the visual name, which would be very logical. But I really hope that the display name would be the default from Microsoft going forward. And then we have, I would say, the ugly defaults. And they are beginning to move away from that. But a slider in my slicer, a list, well, I would prefer a drop-down. And now the new dates picker option in the slicer, I would definitely use that instead of the default dates. So why these default settings? And is there a way that we can avoid all these clicks? Yes, it is working with style presets. Style presets is one of the most underutilized features, I would say. And thankfully, Microsoft are catching up and doing that in their modern visuals with style presets and updates there. You already know style presets, but most likely you're not using it because they are terrible. So for example, in the table or matrix, we have 10 different style presets, where my most favorite is my bold header flashy rows that I'm never going to use. But that's a style preset. But you're not able to change that. That is just default from Microsoft. But opening up the report theme, not in Power BI Desktop, because that is only, I don't know, 5%. Opening up in Visual Studio Code or external tools. There are Power UI, there are Power BI Tips Theme Generator, BIP, and many other external tools that have tried to open up what are the actually properties you can set, but where Power BI Desktop is only showing you a few percentage. So this is where Visual Studio Code and some schema is going to be very helpful. Let's view that. So up here in my Explorer, and that should then be in the .report folder. And I have then the static resources, and I have the registered resources, and I have this KPI lab with a terrible amount of colors, which I don't know why. Normally, maybe you would set 8 to 10 hex colors, but anyway, we have this. That is something you can see, but now I can easily collapse. And now you can see I have some properties here as well. Well, the big difference is actually what we can do within visual styles, but I have no clue on what can I actually do here? How can I get started? And this is where we can actually bring in a schema from Microsoft to help us get intelligence in the context where we would like. So I will go in and add a schema, but we need the URL of the schema or the actual file. Let me get that. So we have this Microsoft on their GitHub. They actually have this report theme JSON schema, and they have, oh, this is new. So yeah, so we have this report theme schema from June 2026, and normally there would be some small communication on what's actually edited and so forth. Let me not go into that. That way. So going into that version and clicking on raw, that will give us this beautiful JSON. I will then copy paste the URL. That is what we're going to use and insert into here. So now I can use that schema, and that schema is actually like 86,000 lines of JSON with all the properties that is valid for report theme. So that's just crazy amount. And yeah, most likely the Harry Potter lightning card visual is having a lot of these properties there as well. But anyway, as we get this, and let me just check Control-Shift-M. That is a shortcut opening up if there should be any problems. Sometimes when connecting to this external, you would need to trust the domain of this. But I did this before, or the domain before. Okay, so what does it do? Well, I have no clue on, well, I would like to do something with the slicer, but currently I'm only doing something with the page. But now here in the visual styles, control space. Now that because I have the schema, I can see in the context here, I have all these visuals I would like to have setting some property on. So I can set what should this slicer look like as my default, or what should the pie chart look like? And I try to do it as ugly as possible so no one would ever use it, for example. But yeah, you can do it on individual things here. But sometimes be aware of the name. It is not that intuitive or identical with the name in Power BI Desktop. For example, I think the pivot table, that is, of course, then the matrix in Power BI. But let me take the slicer. And again, I have no clue on what to do here. So control space again. Okay, star, control space. Okay, now I can see something. Well, what would I do here on the slicer as default? Well, normally it could be something to have a drop down or remove the slider or what it might be. So let's go into data, I think, control space. And now I can see, okay, I would like to maybe have the mode to be, yes, now you can see, right? So instead of that, I'd like to have the mode of dropdown. So control space with the schema will help you and guide you to what's actually possible and valid to include here. You can then right click and say format document, and that will then format into proper JSON, which will also going to help, and you can collapse these things. So then opening up, they will try to have the default slicer would be a dropdown, and you could have all the things you would normally do and set for your visuals, put it into the report theme. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some detective work to find the exact things there. But remember, you can look on the files in the visual.json, and then maybe you could ask some LLMs, try to convert this into the report theme. So you can avoid clicks and remove that ugly default. I already have cheated a bit here because I was talking about style presets as well, and it's going to take some time to set up, but let's opening up this folder from my repo where I have slicer report theme properties in a JSON or a page navigator. So this slicer, it is just focusing on the properties for a slicer. So it will give you some errors because as is, it will fail. But I can copy paste this. And I can then go in and paste it directly into the slicer object right here. And I just included a bit more code here, as you can see. So what I included is what should it be for the defaults? And then I added a custom style preset for this visual. What should it look like if it's a dropdown? Or what should it be like if it's a tile single? So these style presets is actually possible for me to set on my slicer. Let me try to save. And you would hope that this would then be reflected automatically in this Power BI desktop. Unfortunately not, but there are coming just right now some updates on that. We could go in and reload the page so we can see the differences. But until that really works, well, I would need to, unfortunately, when diving directly into the files, close it and open up the file again, unfortunately. So let me go in and open that. And hopefully we're going to see some new options for the slicer with the style presets that was not there before. So this opens up with the style presets with your options, because the slicer sometimes it's not just one way to look at it. There should be 3 ways on how to customize a slicer, or a page navigator, or a button, or a clustered bar chart, or a line chart. And that is also what Power BI Core Visuals team are beginning to include now. So if you convert that into their new themes and convert it into PBIP and open that up, there's going to be 4,000 lines of JSON code in that. All right, so this ugly slicer, just the list slicer, I should, if this worked, go into the formats. Yes, this was not there before, the style presets, but now because I added that in the JSON theme, it is now there. And you can now see I have default, drop-down, slicer. So if I head to this drop-down, you will then see it is a drop-down and select all is enabled and multi-select control is off. So that is some of these classic clicks I always do for every slicer. Of course, you can do that and copy-paste, but why not just have it in one go or as a default? So that really makes my day. And adding that into a template, sharing that with developers, then we can have some more consistency and avoiding more clicks. All right. We could have an entire hour just with that, and I know many others are very passionate about this, but yeah, let's move on to documentation. And that is something I'm really passionate about as well. And yeah, before I go further, there is on the roadmap, fingers crossed, the Microsoft roadmap, that from the UI, you can add 2 presets for Power BI visuals. So let's imagine UI inside Power BI Desktop, you have used a lot of time formatting this visual. Right-click that and save as style preset to the report theme. Just like Excel, right? But this was going to be so cool. It's planned for Q4 2026, but you never know about the roadmap. But that's going to be good. But yeah, documentation can be fun. So this type of table and report is something I would add in any semantic model or any report. It is for the more technical report or semantic model developer, but it's so easy because it requires minimal maintenance. And it is like a component using the info.view DAX functions that are so generic that something consultants just so love. And if I can do it a little bit easier for anyone else to have documentation, well, why not do that? Well, I could simply copy paste the actual DAX code and copy paste the visuals and the slices and so forth. But what I actually did is convert that into PBIP, and now I just have one template file for my model documentation. And then I have a folder named the 20 character something for my page. That includes a folder for my visuals with my slicer, with my matrix, with my text box, and so forth. So I can just copy paste, a skill I'm very good at. I've been practicing that for years. So we can just copy paste that in. So let's try. So in my cloned repo again, in this getting started, everything is there. The add model docs, I have the model documentation, that is the template. The template is what we need to include in the dot semantic model. That is in the definition, in the tables, and just copy paste. Good. Then I will go back to the dot report in the definition in the pages, and then I will copy paste this. It would be a problem if it was a duplicate of the ID, but it never happened to me before. But yeah. And should we change something in the pages? No, it's actually doing that automatically. So copy pasting, and then is it reflected here? No, but I know they will come, and I know something is already out there, but I think there are still some things that needs to be updated before it's really good, but it's coming, so it's synchronized. So I will close this and open up again. So fun to do. And if it's a success, it should come up with, you have a table you need to refresh. Because it's a DAX calculated table, it needs to do a calculate. And then there should be a new report page named model docs that will then have the components of the visualization using the info.view. All right. So far, so good. We have a model docs. Cool. And one or more calculated tables need to be manually refreshed. I will refresh that, and you can see I have this DAX calculated table. So this table is a union between the info.view columns, info.view measures, tables, and relationships. So we have a single table, so we can easily go in and say, what is the column, the name, description, and location, and expression, and filter between column, measure, table, relationships, and see how little description we have. So if I go in and see the model docs, perfect. So we can see the location, the name, the type, the expression, and I can filter between column, relationships, and table. So I did that just by copy pasting, and it's working. And this, because it needs to be fun, well, if I add a new measure, because I don't have any measures in this, let's call it hello Italy. Whoop, now we suddenly had now a slicer option here with measures. Clicking here, measure, and it's there. So this is auto updating with changes we do with measures, columns, tables, relationships. And if you feel like adding descriptions now, well, it will be there. And because it's part of the semantic model, you can just share it easily with your report developers that should have a live connection. So they can always see how the DAX is and your description. And they can even copy paste if they feel like. And yes, you can loop this over in a notebook to gather all this on all your semantic models in attendance. That's another talk, but I have a notebook on my GitHub for that. But so this PBIP really opens up for such much flexibility and components and copy paste, and you can see the changes that we have added here. So if we go back to Visual Studio Code, okay, what did I do the entire day on just the last 20 minutes? Well, I can see all these changes. I had one modification in my KPI lab. Well, let's say I would like to state this because I would like to have that included in my commits. So changed or added style presets. So I only include that, even though I have other 8 files, but I can say I should only have this one in my commits. So now you can see that is gone and it's added here, added style presets. And now I can see, okay, now I have these 8 untracked files. So that is the new with the model documentation. So I could stage all these. If there were for some reason something you wanted to discard, you can just click here and it will be removed. You can also do that for everything. So discard all changes, don't include that. But I'll say I do like this, and documentation can be fun. And now we have added this. So now just the last 50 minutes or something like that, well, everything I have been doing for this, I can go in to see the individual files I added and the code I changed. And if a client or a colleague or something else ask, what did we actually do this day? Or did we change the logic how? Well, we can go and see in the actual code and no more guessing. I think that is super cool. All right, so this was about the fundamentals here. But what about AI? I have tried to avoid AI and LLMs, but it's very difficult in the times we are in right now. But I can't stress this enough. Maybe it's just my personality, I don't know. But I would highly recommend getting the fundamentals right, having Visual Studio Code or some sort of Git or source control, getting familiar with that. Just as a single Power BI developer, don't be an expert in branching strategies or how to pull up or what it might be. Focusing on just yourself, it is a great tool and a productivity boost and transparency just as a single developer as well. Because often we take a too big step in trying to understand what pro developers, also Matthias Tierbach, Rui Romano, and others, it's really difficult to start on your journey and go to that level. So maybe this is a little bit in between. But yeah, AI, agentic Power BI development. In Visual Studio Code, we have GitHub Copilot right there, if again you have a license to it as well. And with the Power BI modeling MCP server, we can just chat. So please connect to this PBIP folder, remove all the table prefix, add all these 50 measures. Please also add all descriptions on my columns table measures, because I can see in my model documentation components that it's quite empty. You could also have analyze it for best practices or what it might be. And this is where you need to have some instructions. And this is where you need some skills. That is just files, Markdown and files and components. Kurt Buehler and Microsoft and many other have already created a loads of skills. And I already have 57 skills, and now my AI is beginning to hallucinate and can't decide which skills to actually use. So now I have too many skills to choose from. So now that is going to be a bit more difficult. But think what you would do manually. Many things can be automated. Yes, there is many things you could do with Tabular Editor on the semantic model, and that will not cost any AI tokens. It requires some level of understanding on the C# script, but mainly copy-pasting from the community and Kurt Buehler or Daniel Oettinger, to be honest. But there are things like adding documentation or text or giving some insights. Well, we can definitely use the LLM to do that. So yeah, documentation. There are many things we can do with the LLM. But again, you need some licensing, you need the Power BI modeling MCP server, and also a set of skills. It is very much thought on the semantic model and less on the PBIR on the report layer. But thankfully, I think here at Build, it was announced we are getting some skills for Fabric with the report authoring, also with this update and synchronization. If we change the files, it will update automatically in the Power BI desktop and so forth. But yeah, we can also create our own instructions and put that in, and we can actually provide some. So we can just chat with the chatbot or the LLM, and it will do some modifications. Let's try it out and see what it brings. And it will be different from time to time and the mood of the day. But in order to get started, toggle chat up here. It will then open up, and I have a Copilot Max. So I have one of the big subscriptions, really cool. So I have a lot of the newer models as well. And you need to think on the cost on all that as well. But I'm not going to go into depth with that. But let's try with the keyword here, connect to my Power BI desktop. And my path is over here, that I need to go to the definition and copy path. Most likely you can also just try. It will always get better, but I will just not have this part of the context. Good. So this is the keyword to get started with the Power BI modeling MCP server that is also documented. It is created by Microsoft, maybe still in preview. And then it will begin to reason and think. So it should go and look for, and I have other MCP servers, but now it's beginning to run the connection operations from the Power BI modeling MCP. Yes, connected. Cool. So create me new measures, time intelligence measures, and document with descriptions in the measures as well. All right. So what it will begin to do is scan and see what would be the reasonable measures I should add. And I only had this hello Italy, but I have 4 fact tables. So hopefully a basic sum of my numeric columns on my fact tables. And then the time intelligence, well, it could be year to date, year over year, month to date, or quarter to date. And if you would like to have a better result to begin with, well, I should be more clear on the instructions I gave. But it's just to say it is beginning to read the files here on the PBIP. And as it's now been beginning to generate this, we will see which files did it add, modify, or even sometimes delete, because that is something you really need to be cautious about. And you can also see that right now it's having some problems because it's not really understanding how it should put the description. So hopefully it will think, there is an error, and it will then solve that before we actually see that result. So I can see that 2 files are changing at the moment and they are preparing. And yeah, depending on how difficult the prompts and how many tables you should go through, well, yeah, so now you can see I hit a temporal parsing issue. There was something it didn't expect on description, so as I can see here. So there is a proper way using a backslash for the comments and so forth. So it did find that. So it is validating. So this is in agent mode, so it's just doing it. So not like classic copy paste. Okay, so now it says what was added. Okay, let's go over to my source control. And, oh, okay. Let's see. Yes, there is definitely something wrong here. So there's something in uninspected expression. Come on, validate this. So yeah, sometimes even in the first go, it is not good enough. So errors in format string. Come on. So, but now
I say
what was added there. Yeah, Alessandro.
I say it's nice to see it make a mistake, because if you go on LinkedIn, you will see people like just MCP everything. It works like magic. Then you see an actual demo, and if you don't know what you are doing, like literally do not know even to look for the expression error, you cannot use these things.
Exactly. And sometimes it is good in order to, get that right. And now you can actually see no problems have been detected. So Control-Shift-M will give you this small problems. And now it looks like everything is fine. But that is something you can build into the skills. And it also do matter on the LLM. So here it used the GPT 5.3 codex. But if I use Claude Sonnet, maybe that would be a different experience. All right, so let me try to say I keep this. And if I then open up, reopen, and again, that should be available, but let us see if it works. And then you can just see that anything you can then begin to prompt here, you'll be able to see the files it's modifying. to have some level of control, because it can hallucinate. It can delete some things it shouldn't. But having everything in source control, you have a much better way to see what was changed and so forth. So let's see. Do I have more measures? Yes, and they are documented there. Is it good measures? Well, I don't know, but it was fun to create, right? So it can give you a productivity boost. But I would highly recommend understanding of this PBIP, understanding on source control and the Git, and then you can begin to wildly explore, and you can easily just discard the changes there. Yeah, you can easily begin to go into LinkedIn, Kurt Bueller, NJ Park, so many more. I can't remember all the names there, but I've been creating my own agents with my own skills as well to create model layout views. I would like to have one model layout view per fact table with my dimensions in the top, my fact tables below, instead of one big spider web. So I could just say organize the diagram layout view as instructed. It could also be go in and group all my visuals together in the selection pane, which is a pain, but it's really important if you would like to hand over or create bookmarks or everything like that, instead of slicer, 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 button, button, button. Renaming Power Query folders, documentation, and yeah, Kurt Bueller. And yeah, you know what? Go on my LinkedIn or just look on LinkedIn. There are plenty of to give you AI FOMO, but this is about to achieve this. It is super easy in a couple of hours of iterations, but it takes some skills to learn. But getting the fundamentals right, well, it's super important, because there is a new skill set for the new advanced Power BI developers. It is not just Power BI desktop, and maybe not just tablet editor or notebooks, but understanding on the PBIP and how you can use GitHub Copilot or Claude or any other tools to do that. And then you need to collaborate with other people and have dev, test, production, and all that. I didn't talk about that. That should be another person who's an expert in all these branches. Maybe you, Alessandro. I know you are a bit more on that, on the branches and automating build pipelines and so forth. But how to guide your GitHub Copilot or your LLM, that's really going to give you some fundamentals there. All right. So yeah, you have all the slides available on my GitHub. Maybe, I don't know whether you can share it as well, Alessandro, but again, there is plenty of time in your summer vacation where you definitely need to look some of these things up. It is happening so fast. You don't need to be a first mover, but you need to begin now, because yeah, I don't know where we're going to be in 6 months or 1 year from now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And especially with the examples that you made in the last part, those are definitely things that I don't want to do, man. Like I'm try to use AI. I don't want to say as little as possible, but I do, because I feel that if I start to use it too much, I really lose my skills, which is something that I don't like, because you know, I spent a lot of time studying DAX, studying SQL, and to just forget it, because for 6 months I just asked AI to do stuff. I don't really like it. But there is definitely things that it doesn't make sense that you do it manually, like you showed, organizing objects on the page, giving meaningful names to your bookmarks, to the selection objects, to the Power Query steps. You know, you do it manually, you use an entire day for nothing. So, and then, to be honest, it's also really good at writing code at this point. And you know, it's something that is here to stay, and we are supposed to know about it. But of course, like you said, the fundamentals is like the ground that everything else builds on. If you don't have PBIP, if you're not using version control, you risk doing a lot of damage, because if it hallucinates and deletes the wrong thing, then it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
So we have just one comment from Andrea, and then we can comment on this and then close. I don't know if it even fits in the screen entirely. Okay, a little suggestion to anyone that has never used Git. Avoid the stage part and focus on commit, clone, pull, checkout, and publish. So basically, staging is needed for complicated and large dev teams. As we mostly work alone, staging is an overshoot. Again, my opinion, but I've been using it since a few years, not just Power BI, and I very rarely used staging. I kind of agree with this comment. Yes, I also don't use staging when I'm working alone, and working in Power BI. Collaboration is not. We always say that. Don't tell me what you think, David, but I also say in my sessions that Git and PBIP and everything enables collaboration. But let's be honest, it doesn't happen so often that you work on the same branch, on the same report, and it's mostly one guy doing an entire little development and pushing, then another guy does another development. But yeah,
definitely. And again, I'm trying to learn Git as I go, and I'm not a pro developer, and mainly would do it for Power BI. So I'm always open for suggestions on how to utilize Git. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. So, guys, I think let me remove the screen. I think that's it for today. Thanks, David, for your session. It was really interesting. If you join later during the session, you will find it on LinkedIn, on YouTube for forever. so you can review the entire session later. I will definitely review it. Some things that I want to see again about the style presets, which I haven't yet used and studied. So for sure, I will watch that part. And for everyone else, next events are coming in July. Tomorrow we have an announcement for our Ticino conference. There is going to be a very interesting pre-con and a very interesting speaker for our conference, which is going to be announced tomorrow. And then, yeah, subscribe to all the channels, subscribe to the conference, and join our activities. So thanks again, David, and see you next time.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.